Welcome to melbournefc.com.au. We're talking to Melbourne great Todd Viney, and you're back at the club, Todd. Can you sort of tell us about your role?
Well, no, it's exciting to be back. It's been a long time since I've been here, and the club's changed enormously, firstly, and fantastic new environment at Amy Park. So certainly a big step forward from the old Junction Oval days. So I think the players are really excited, and certainly the coaches and the staff I've had some things to do with have been really excited about the new facility. My role is General Manager of Player Development. Now what that entails, it's a pretty full-on role. I think spending a lot of time with Dean and the coaches about the type of game style that we're looking to play, and which we hope is going to be good enough to take us to our 13th premiership. So the coaches spend a lot of time developing that game style. So working really closely with them, with Tim Harrington, who's list manager, general manager of list management, to make sure that all the players have a clear understanding of what the game style is, the roles that are within the premiership model, and the level that we have to get to as far as their skill execution and the game understanding and their physical attributes to play those roles. To work pretty closely with them to make sure that they keep developing those skills to eventually get to where we want to go, which is that 13th premiership team. We've started to assemble a fantastic list with really exciting talent, very young talent. So you don't get a second chance to develop that talent, and so the club's invested in the development of that with my new role to make sure that we are helping work and strategically planning for the development of all those young players.
Somewhat of a new role within the AFL system in many respects. Do you sort of see that as a bit of a revolutionary position, because you're almost coaching but part of list management in many respects?
Yeah, look, it's certainly a role that perhaps Adelaide didn't have at my previous club where I was at, but I think the game is developing enormously. Clubs are looking to do things differently, looking for the advantage. The experience that I had, I guess, at Hawthorn probably stands me in pretty good stead, because very similar in the fact that recruited some really young talent. They're all coming through the same time. That experience of eventually developing a game plan, which is a little bit radical, I guess, at the time with the press, the Clarko cluster or whatever it was named. But we developed a game style. We developed it, even though we had super talent with Ruffhead and Franklin and Lewis and Clinton Young. Those players still needed to be taught the game style, developed. And sometimes we were laughed at by the media in some regards, but we stuck to our task and didn't deviate from it. Made some hard decisions and developed our players, and 4 years later we managed to win the 2008 premiership. So I think that experience has stood me in really good stead, and the club's shown a lot of foresight in developing this role.
And what's it been like? I mean, you obviously were at Melbourne for a long time, and then had a time as an assistant coach here, and then time at Hawthorn and Adelaide as well. What have you sort of learnt from those clubs that you can bring back to Melbourne?
Well, I think firstly, I had a little bit of experience coaching in the country. That was exciting time, coaching for the first time. Certainly not at the highest level, so you have different frustrations with that. That it's not the be all and end all. But I've enjoyed that, coaching my own team. Spent some time at Hawthorn, which I said was fantastic to be part of that rebuilding process. Very similar to the Melbourne experience, really. When I first started Hawthorn, we were underneath the Glenferrie Oval grandstand. Really small oval, probably not to the standard of professional athletes should be training on. Then eventually we moved to Waverley, experienced that new facility, saw the improvement in the players and just their attitudes to say, well, now I'm an elite athlete, I don't have any excuses anymore, because we are training in just as good a facility as the other teams. So that whole mindset was really important to see that change. So that whole experience of developing right from the start was invaluable, and winning a premiership was something that I always dreamt of doing as a player. Didn't manage to do that, but as a coach was just as exciting. Probably not as exciting as a player, but just a real high. And then going to Adelaide, which is a really professional club, do things really, really well in a lot of areas. I think that just adds to your overall experience. You pick up things from everywhere you go. Under the coaches that you've played under, coached with, seen the game evolve. So I think it's a fair bit of experience now that I'm in a good position to pass on.
And is there a little bit of romance for you coming back to Melbourne? I mean, there's a couple of people here, of course, Chris Connolly, Cameron Schwab, who were involved when you started at the club. They're back here again, and what's that like, sort of having that Melbourne connection and coming back?
Well, it certainly does. It certainly feels like there's been a lot of emotional investment from my behalf when I was a player. Playing 13 years here and created lifelong friendships at the Melbourne Footy Club through players. And Andrew Daff, the doctor here at the club's been here virtually since I started. He started off the under-19s and he's still the club doctor here. So there's been some great relationships built. And when you go away from the club, you sort of forget about the closeness of the relationships when you were here. But for me, it's emotionally, it just feels like I'm home. It's been a real amazing feeling. I think a lesson I learned really early in life is you've got to be passionate about what you do and to be successful. And the emotional investment as a player, being here and coming back, you certainly want to give back to the club and in some way. So I think those emotional attachments have been really strong. And every second I've been here feels like just being home, and not like work really, just like being home.
And also, your son Jack has obviously been a prominent player in the under-16s this year and had a great year. It's been talked about a little bit. Can you just talk about him as a possible father-son for the club down the track?
Yeah, well, he's certainly started to make some strides. He's getting to that age now, which he's 16, turning 17 in April. So amazing to think he's that old. He's just got his driving licence in Adelaide, which he can be a bit younger over there. But he's growing up. He's starting to play some pretty exciting football. Was lucky enough to be captain of the South Australian 16s team, and in the National Carnival this year, and they won the competition. And he had a reasonable carnival, so he started to attract a little bit of interest. And fair to say that he's had some just ongoing discussions with the club through Chris Connolly and Barry Prendergast and Cameron Schwab. Cameron's been very proactive in sending over a Melbourne jumper probably a couple of years ago to make sure he didn't forget about the family heritage through the club. So he's certainly had those discussions with Melbourne, and they're ongoing. So hopefully he keeps developing, and there can be a relationship if he's good enough to be part of the Melbourne Footy Club.
All right, Todd, well, thanks for your time and best of luck in the new role. I'm sure all Melbourne supporters are rapt to have you back, and look forward to seeing you in action in 2011.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I'm really looking forward to it.